again.
I don't know what. Okay, so I'm playing the role as the therapist, and Tracy is my client. Tracy has been coming to me for the last 6 sessions for some help related to her blended family. She is married to Philip, and Philip was previously married to Sherry. And Philip and Sherry have a son, Jason, who is now Tracy's stepson. And Tracy came to therapy really for help in, making her marriage a little easier and also her relationship with her stepson. She's been working diligently at the CBT skills for the last 6 sessions. And today we're going to be working on a new skill, the reducing safety behaviors. Hi, Tracy. How are you today?
Hi, Allison. I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for meeting with me.
What do you want to talk about from the last week?
Well, we've been talking a lot about the blended family and the problem in our blended family. We actually had a pretty significant interaction with Sherry this week because it was an annual event at Jason's school. They have a concert every year. He's part of it. It's not really a big deal, but it just happens every year. And so she insisted on sitting in the front, which was the parent section, but insisted on taking a spot where there were just two seats, one for
Oh,
her and one for my husband.
wow.
Um, she made a pretty big deal about it, about how, Jason should be able to see his parents when he's on the stage and how special that is for him. And again, it was in the front, people could see us. She was being loud per usual. And so I just was like, yep, that's great, that's fine. I ended up in exactly the back row because I had not looked for other seating because I had planned to sit in the front with the parents. There were friends back there were people I knew, like it wasn't terrible and I wasn't alone, but man,
That
there
must
were
have been challenging.
Like I'm hot right now just thinking about it. Like it was intense. And I think I've told you some of the other incidents from that she's done before. And so each time it happens, it brings up not just my own stuff around like, should they try to be together so that he has his family united? Do they still care about each other? But also like you're making a fool out of all of us in front of other adults again.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, it was pretty
it's
intense.
really intense.
It
What do
was.
you think your anxiety rating, if you could give it a rating, what was your anxiety rating?
I mean, you and I usually use like a 0 to 10 sort of situation, and I'd say for a second it was like a 37.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds up there in terms of, the things you've been dealing with. Were you able to find any adaptive responses in that moment?
Yes, to be honest, it took a minute, right? Like
Yeah,
I found where my seat was,
understandable.
made sure I had a seat, but needed to like, I think I said to someone else sitting there, like, I just need to go to the restroom for a second or so. Like I just had to remove myself for a second. And then when I was able to come back, it was like, okay, let me sort of tap into some of these techniques that Allison has taught me. Like, like where are my eyebrows? Can I relax my eyebrows? Where are my shoulders? Where, like just trying to sort of walk through the face, the neck, the shoulders, the abdomen, and kind of relax some of those.
Awesome.
I could feel the tension leaving me. And as long as I could focus on those, I felt more relaxed. It probably took 6 or 8 times going through those paces versus the one or two for a lesser issue.
Sure, that
As
makes a
long
lot
as
of
I was,
sense.
yeah, and as long as I was doing it, I felt calmer. But then every time I thought about it again, or every time I caught sight of her again, I had to like start over. But they do help. I just had to do it multiple times.
That's so amazing. I'm actually really proud of you. That sounds like really the ultimate of stressful situations in the context of what we've been talking about. And you totally found some adaptive responses. You found that leaving actually helped you to just sort of, get out of the situation and the stimulus. And then when you came back, you were able to use your relaxation techniques. That's amazing. I'm so, so happy that you were able to find that in that super stressful situation. Wow.
It really was. I mean, the face flushed, the heart raced, right? Like I got sweaty, I got hot. And for a second, I was like, this is why people fight people in public. Like for 1 second, I was like, oh, now I get it. Yeah, it was tough.
And once you relaxed, were you able to, what were your thoughts then?
After the 12th time relaxing, I tried to just shift my focus to the stage to like keep my eyes where I really couldn't see her, so that I could just really think about like this is his moment. Like this is a time for him to show off this hard work that he's been doing. Like I'm super proud of him. I'm happy that he gets to do this. He's clearly going to be happy. He's going to know we were all here.
Yeah.
Probably secretly in my head, I was like, she doesn't know about stage lights. He can't see her anyway, but I didn't like voice that. I just, kind of thought in my head, like, there's a way for us to all be here and all be supporting him. And if for at least one of us, it's always me, to be like the calm and civil one.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. I'm glad you were able to kind of reframe your thoughts about the situation. And it sounds like you were able to find some joy in the moment also. That's so terrific. I'm really, really happy. And if you could rate your anxiety at that point, what would it have been?
I joked about a 37. It was probably, a 9 or a 10. And I think after several minutes passed and multiple relaxation techniques and focusing on the child, which is where the focus should always be, I would say probably I don't know, 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's great. I just really want to acknowledge your hard work there. It was a
Thank you.
super hard trigger, and you really were able to tap into some of those skills and see some benefits. So I'm just so happy to see that. You mentioned last week that there's a family birthday party coming up that you're going to be hosting Jason's 17th birthday party. Um, and I'm sure Sherry is going to be there. And I was just thinking we could talk through this a little bit. Uh, are you up for doing a modified worry exposure exercise?
Sure. Yeah, we can try whatever.
Okay, so I'd like you to get comfortable in your seat
Okay.
and close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. And just take 2 deep breaths. So inhale deeply and exhale. And really feel the seat supporting you. I want you to plant your feet firmly on the ground and just really imagine a sense of support coming from the seat and support coming from the ground. And now I want you to picture the birthday party that's coming up. And I want you to try to picture it in as great of detail as you can imagine. So, who's there? What does your house look like? What does the birthday cake look like? What do the presents look like? So, just tell me a little bit about that.
Um, we are having it at our house, but we're doing a tent outside.
Hmm.
Um, it's lovely. We were able to pull funds from the both sides of the family to make this special for him. So it's catered, it's lovely. It's an evening, so there'll be a party afterwards that'll mostly be his friends who will be there for the dinner party part, but then the grown-ups will sort of disseminate a little and have the younger people have their own little party after. There's great food, which Jason helped to decide on the food options. There's cake. There are decorations. They're kind of minimal. He's a teenage boy, so it's not necessarily what one of us may have wanted. Um, but it has the potential to be a really memorable night. for him, as long as I keep my focus on those things and don't keep seeing her in every corner. It's great.
And now I want you to imagine the worst case scenario, the worst outcome that you could picture with Sherry being there. What would that look like?
She's for sure going to make it about her in this worst case scenario. She likes to be the center of attention. It will be some big soliloquy about what a great mother she is to him versus what a great child he is. She will insist on there being family photos being made that don't include me, because she often does that, of like, oh, Jason with his parents. I sometimes worry about her finally like being like, oh, really wish we could still be together. I don't know if it'll be that. I think it's really just attention seeking. I think it's just the worst case scenario is just her making this whole entire thing about her, saying she paid for it all, she planned it all, she organized it all, and she is the world's greatest mother.
Mm.
That's worst case scenario for me.
And what's your anxiety when you picture that scenario? Can you scale your anxiety for me?
Like an 8.
It's pretty
Yeah,
high,
that's like an 8.
pretty stressful.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure.
That's right up there with I have to go sit in the back of the theater. Mhm.
And now I want you to try to brainstorm some alternative outcomes. What's another way that it could go? Because we don't know how it's going to go, right?
Don't we though? It could, it may be fine. It may be fine. Maybe she'll just come to the party, she'll enjoy the food, she'll enjoy time with her child, and then do what everyone else does and move away and let him enjoy his evening party with his friends, and it's just all smooth and there are no problems. It could be like that.
How does that feel? What's the anxiety rating now?
I mean, ideally it makes it less, except there's this little part of my head that's like, it's not happening.
Can't let go. Yeah. But
It
we
would
don't know.
like
We
make
don't know
it
how it's going to go.
I don't. I don't. I'm making it up either way. That's
So,
fair.
um, is there any other way that you'd like to prepare for the party coming up? Any any other things that you might be able to remember, like if she does take pictures with Philip and Jason, what are you going to do? How would you handle that?
Is there a way for her to have like amoebic dysentery before then? No. Okay. So other preparations would be, I guess the same of all of my preparations anytime I'm with her, right? Like distance myself whenever possible, ignore the things that come out of her mouth, trust that other people know her well enough to see what is happening,
Yeah,
and know that the ultimate goal is for Jason to have a memorable and
right.
wonderful birthday party with his family and his friends. And if he is happy at the end of the night, then it doesn't matter what anyone else has done.
So you recognize that maybe stepping out if you need to would be helpful, and just reminding yourself, what the night's about, and, focusing your attention on him and not on her. Great. That sounds really great. And, we'll obviously be able to debrief next week when I see you and talk about how it went. So let's review your worry record for the week. Um, what was your peak level?
The theater.
Yeah, I figured.
Mhm.
And what was that value?
I think that was about a 10.
Okay,
That
great.
was up there.
Okay. And then what was the average for your week?
Most of the time I'm around a 4 or a 5, like, and that's even, some work things come up, some household things come up that'll move it a little, but not like that. Like that event threw off the average for the whole week, right? Like when
Sure.
you're looking at that 10 made the rest of the
Yeah.
data look different. But most of the week it's a pretty, 3, 4, 5 sort of range.
So if you remember when we first started, you were really averaging more around like a 6 or a 7. So,
Mhm.
I just want to acknowledge that you've shown consistent improvement in those ratings. And
Yeah.
I'm really happy to see that.
Me too. Thank you. It's definitely getting better.
Great. It's awesome. And let's talk about the thought record. Did you have any observations about your thought record this week?
Well, it's funny that you just mentioned sort of the drop in the average because the worry record in combination with the thought record and the journaling, like sort of cross-sectioning all that data, like has helped me to see that Sherry is a huge source of anxiety for me,
Mm.
and it was leaking into other areas. And
Mhm.
so work scenarios felt more stressful, household scenarios felt more stressful, being in the grocery store and the line is long felt more stressful because I was
Right.
allowing that 10 that happened once a week when I was with her to sort of seep into the rest of the day. And
Mm.
so being able to look at it on paper was like, oh, okay, she makes me a 10, which makes everything else feel worse. But if I can isolate that stress to her,
Mm.
then I can make positive changes in the rest of my day, if
Wow,
that
that's
makes
a huge revelation, a really, I think, important self-observation that, that was affecting all your other things. And you might not have made that connection before. You might have just thought, oh, this, grocery store, the cashier at the grocery store is making me insane. You know,
sense.
wow, I'm
And
so
really, it's just Sherry makes me insane, which
And
is good, right? Because I just need to practice how I respond to her in the moment and in the days after, right? Like that feels like isolating the problem feels
yeah,
better, I
it
think.
could be like a little compartmentalization. Yeah, not to
Yeah,
see it
maybe.
as like your entire life is chaotic and anxiety producing. It's really just this one aspect. If you can just focus on that, that's great. I'm glad you were able to put that together. And how are the relaxation practices? It sounds like you were really able to tap into that at the concert this week. Are you doing those every day still?
I have been practicing them just as sort of like my morning ritual. I have noticed that I don't feel the need to use them as much in regular everyday things anymore.
Mm.
Once I kind of started to make that realization of like, I don't hate my job or my life or the grocery store or whatever, right? Like all of these scenarios are not causing anxiety. It's just this one source that's causing
Mhm.
everything to feel more stressful.
Right.
And so I use them more now as like my morning meditation to just kick the day off.
Right.
I've used them a couple of times when something kind of stressful came up at work, and that has really helped. And I think that practice made it easier when I was really about to blow my top at the concert to use them then when I really needed them.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hearing that you're kind of starting your day off with a baseline of relaxation and grounding, and then you're tapping into, the
Mhm.
practices that you can kind of grab during times when it really flares up. That's so great. Thanks for sharing that with me. And of the skills that you've been learning, I'm just curious, which one do you like the most? Or can you, is there one that you really like or one that you avoid? Like, I'm just interested to know what seems most beneficial.
The relaxation one that I used at the concert with like the starting at, the face and moving down, like identifying different muscle zones and
Mhm.
relaxing them. I think I probably used the most because you can literally do that anywhere and
Yeah.
nobody even knows that you're doing it, right? Like sitting in a meeting, sitting at the concert, sitting in traffic, in that grocery store line, like anywhere I could be, I can do that. I can't always walk away and take 5 minutes to like do a deep breathing meditation. People notice, and I don't care that people notice, but it gets a little awkward, right? But it doesn't matter where I am. That one's just the most accessible in any situation. And so I think that's probably my favorite.
Great. That's so great. Yeah, that's, really the goal of these skills is for when we're done, you to have built a repertoire of things that you can just grab onto when you need them. So that's great. I'm glad you identified that. Okay, so we're gonna set our agenda for the day. Um, we're gonna start by reviewing your homework from last week. And then we're going to introduce a new skill, and that is reducing safety behaviors. We're going to examine how these behaviors may have effects on your personal relationships. We'll summarize the session and we'll discuss your homework for next week. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our agenda for today?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's look at that the self-assessment for safety behaviors that you did in your review. Do you have that sheet with you?
I have the manual. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to get mine out as well. So, what stood out for you when you did this assessment?
I don't think I really understood what safety behaviors were. I don't think I'd ever really heard them called that before this. And so it was just interesting to kind of go through them and go like, oh, I do that. Like, I think if someone had said, do you do these safety behaviors? I'm like, I don't have any safety behaviors. What do you mean?
Right.
But then when I started looking through the assessment, I was like, oh, I actually do that. That's what that is.
Yeah.
And so it helped me not only just understand what safety behaviors were, but to sort of see, I actually do several of these.
So which one or ones did you indicate that you want to change?
I marked that number 8, I can tell when my worry goes over the top and I need to stop trying to make everything perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I think I sometimes don't know when my worry is going over the top, and I need to kind of practice recognizing that because I've gotten to the point of I can't make everything perfect, right? I can't make Jason's concert perfect. I can't make his birthday perfect. I can't make this family work perfectly on my own, right? Um, but my constant preparing for it, worrying about it, thinking about it is excessive. Like, I can acknowledge it's excessive. And so I'm not always picking up on it being excessive until I've become excessive, if that
Right.
makes sense. It's like a big
Yeah,
circle.
well, that's what we're going to work on today. And hopefully by learning this behavior, you will be able to change this. I think the fact that you said the most important thing. You're not perfect, and none of us are, and you only have control over, really yourself and your reaction to things. So I think that's a really great place to start working on this behavior.
Perfect. Yeah. I thought it went really well with number 10 too, that at some point I'm making it worse. I think at some point my preparation and my fear mongering and my worst case scenario game are just making the whole thing worse. If not for everyone else, definitely for me.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, just that recognition is a huge strength and is really gonna, again, help you, I think, in as we're learning about this behavior, help you to change them or to stop them for your benefit and for other people's benefits. So that's great. Okay, so uh let's review your homework. I want to just talk about how the worry exposure practice went for you over the week.
Um, I like it. I understand the meaning, like you explained it really well. I understand why that can be helpful. Um, I think I'm exposing myself to so much worry already. That it was helpful to sort of narrow it down and just do it at a specific time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it worked really well after the concert as I was like reflecting on it and thinking about all the ways it could have been worse, even though
Yeah.
it was over and couldn't have been any worse because it was over, right? It was helpful to sit down and say, okay, well, I'm just going to think about that right now.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to think
Yeah.
about it the rest of the day because that's where it's seeping in to
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
And so I think there are some aspects of it that work. I'm just going to have to practice a lot more because I can also see myself being like, this is the best part of the day. I get to worry about all these things, which I guess is also the point, right? As long as you're not worrying throughout the whole day, you're just sort of keeping
Right.
it in that one time
Yeah.
frame.
Keeping it
Um,
in it.
because I so love worst case scenario as a life game. I do let it go a little too far sometimes. And so I think while I'm doing it, I need to sort of have some boundaries for myself because I
Right.
get a little spun up.
The practice, you were supposed to sit with that worry for 25 minutes. Did you find that was challenging?
Um, I mean, I can worry. So like
It wasn't challenging.
I had no problem filling 25 minutes. I mean, from minute 1 to the time we got to 25 minutes, I needed 10 more minutes to like relax myself from all the worry that I had done. It's a game I've been playing my whole life, and I'm actually really good at it. And so no, I didn't have time. I didn't have a hard time filling those 25 minutes. Sometimes, like I have a long commute, and so it's like, okay, I'm just gonna drive. I'm gonna set a timer, and in 25 minutes, I'm gonna stop worrying about this.
Great.
And then I would need another timer to like de-escalate because I had literally imagined the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Could you find that the power of the worry dissipated a little bit towards the end of the 25 minutes? Or were you just kind of still running with your thoughts?
I think at the end of 25 minutes, I'm still running, but I think it is impacting the worry that happens through the rest of the day.
Okay.
Right. So, like, I think I spin myself up pretty good. So, like I said, by the 25-minute mark, I'm like, okay, now I need a breathing exercise or a relaxation exercise because I've thought of all these horrible, terrible, no good, very bad things that could happen. But it meant the rest of the day didn't necessarily have that same burden,
Got it.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'm glad you were able to again tap into the relaxation practice to sort of bring yourself back to some bit of grounding. All right, great. So let's talk about the safety behaviors a little bit more. So you said you haven't heard of that term before.
Mhm.
Okay. So safety behaviors are things that people do to prevent their fear from coming true. They're actions that we take to avoid or decrease our anxiety about a particular situation. Naturally, as we recognize some safety behaviors are really beneficial, right? Like um, when we are at the crossing of a road and we look both ways before we cross, that is actually something that is not just an illusion of danger, it could potentially actually be dangerous. So it's adaptive in that case. But sometimes these behaviors are really about perceived threats or illusions of threats. And rather than preventing what we're worried about, they maintain our anxiety. They actually kind of keep it right here. They can even make our anxiety worse. So again, does the behavior prevent us from true danger, or is it just an illusion of safety? And these can become habits. They can really be very subtle things that we do throughout our day. They're so familiar, and in some cases, we don't even realize that we're doing them. So an example of one of those would be texting your child 4 or 5 times a day, um, or in a social situation, staying quiet because you are worried about saying something awkward or something that's not appropriate. So those are some examples of like, everyday safety behaviors that we may engage in. And again, they can be really subtle. And an important point is that it's not exactly what you do, but why you're doing that makes it a safety behavior. So in the example of texting your child, you're um, say your child is at college and has a fever of 105, texting your child 3, 4, or 5 times a day might be necessary to make sure that they're, taking their medicine or going to the doctor if something is changing, making sure they're okay. But on a daily basis, it's creating, an illusion of control over your child, and in that way is actually really maintaining your anxiety. Um, and another way of trying to figure out whether it's a safety behavior is that if you could ask yourself, how anxious would I be if I stopped this behavior? If the answer to that question is, I would be really anxious, then it's likely a safety behavior. Does that make sense? And do you have
It
any
does.
questions about that?
It does. No, that makes perfect sense to me.
Okay. So we're gonna practice that skill. You ready to give this skill a try?
Sure.
Okay, so I want you to just take a couple of moments and think of three things that you do that could be considered safety behaviors for you. Just take a couple of moments for that. And then once you have your three behaviors, I want you to try to identify the one that would be the easiest for you to stop.
I actually really like the one that you used about a child. I don't necessarily text Jason a whole lot, but I do check his location a
Hmm.
lot.
Okay, so it's like you
It's
check
like Life
Life
360 and I can just
360.
see where
Okay,
he is. Yeah.
got it. And what is that bringing you? Why are you checking Life 360? Tell me about
I'm just worried. Like, I don't even worry so much about like, is he somewhere he's not supposed to be, which teenagers are always going to eventually go somewhere they're not supposed to be. So I don't worry about that as much as like, is he stranded? Has he had car trouble? Has he had a car accident? Is he somewhere completely random that I don't recognize? Right.
Right,
So I think
right.
that's sort of what I'm checking is like, just is he okay more so than where is he?
Yes. And what is the likely consequences? So like you said some of the possible consequences are that he is having car trouble or lost or what happens to Jason most days? Where does he go and what does he do?
Most days he just goes to school and work and then home.
Right. So you're checking Life 360 and he's either at school or on his way home or at his after school sports. Got it. And um, if you imagine stopping this, what does your
Mhm.
anxiety level feel like on the 0 to 10?
Stopping, like not checking it at all, ever?
Yeah, well, you tell me. Yeah, I would say stopping it altogether. And I don't know, you tell me if you would be taking that app off of your phone or just not checking it. What would be easier for you?
Taking the app off my phone feels like a 10. Like that feels really
Okay, okay.
scary, which I guess tells me that this is a safety behavior because I
Yeah.
feel really anxious about not being able to do it.
Yes.
I have a little more control if I say I was just going to like decide how often I was going to check it or stop checking it for X number of days to see how it felt.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe we start there if that seems a little more available to you. So, pretty anxiety producing if you think about stopping that. So, I would say that this is probably a safety behavior for you. So, how does that safety behavior fit in? What is it giving you when you look at that?
It's just confirmation that like he's okay. Like he's wherever he says he was and he's not stranded somewhere.
Can you see how um, looking at this and engaging in the safety behavior might be maintaining your own anxiety? Is that something that you can feel?
Well, I feel a little torn about that because I get really anxious if I haven't checked it in a while, but then I feel better when I do check it and see where he is.
Yeah. So like
But then it doesn't take
imagine,
long before
yeah,
I feel anxious again.
got it. I'm picturing you, grabbing your phone and like opening the app, like what's happening inside you when you're doing that? Do you have some anxiety, worrying, like what are you going to see or what are you, yeah, okay,
Absolutely.
all right.
Absolutely. It, like almost as though I feel like I'm going to open it and see his like beaten and mangled body in an alley. Like that's not even how it works, but that's like for one split second, it's like, oh no, what if?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Um, and that's sort of what I wanted you to kind of be able to experience, is that, there's a sense of kind of maintaining the anxiety and keeping it right here because you're never giving yourself a chance to see this fear disproved. You're, constantly looking and not giving the scenario an opportunity to happen, without you using the app. So, um, you know, so what are some of the other possible outcomes? Like say Jason did have car trouble and broke down on the side of the road. what could happen then?
He would just call us.
You just call him. You know,
He
he's
would. He'd just
17,
call and
he
say,
has his phone, he
he
could just
does.
call you. Yeah. So, you know, there are other ways that this could go other than his broken, mangled body on the side of the street. There's
In which case he couldn't call.
no, no, he couldn't.
But that's also not how the app works.
So, in the short term, engaging this safety behavior, you know, really feels like you're preventing your worst fears from happening. But really, in the long term, you're not even allowing for the scenario to play out for it to be disproved to you. You're constantly engaging in it. So this week you're gonna work on safety behaviors on your own. You're gonna add this new skill to your daily task of things that you're doing. And at home, you're not just gonna imagine resisting the safety behavior, you're actually going to stop engaging in the safety behavior. And kind of like the worry exposure exercise, the hardest part is sitting with that anxiety. It's just sitting with it for a moment. And part of that is, you know, as you kind of identified, you know, sitting with it, it's not going to kill you. You know, it's just sitting with it. And if you can, you know, engage some of your skills, you can get yourself to a place of relaxation and reframe some of your thoughts. Um, and another little tip is that you might want to choose a replacement behavior. So, what's something that you could replace with that? You know, when you go to grab your phone and you have that instinct of, ooh, let me just check where he is. What's a replacement thing? Something else that you could do instead of doing that?
Probably have to think about that. I mean, maybe do one of the relaxation techniques. My first thought was like do something different with my phone, but I think once it's in my hand, I'm looking, right? Like once it's in my hand, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. But I think I could do some of the activities like that you had talked about, or try to steer myself towards, oh, now might be a good time to journal, or now might be a good time to take 1 minute to write a worry record because I'm worried about him,
Oh,
but I can't look.
great, great. You know, I watched you when I asked that question. The first thing you did is you took a big inhale and a big exhale, and like, you know, great. Start there. And then absolutely grab your pen and, you know, jot down in your journal or in your worry record. That's great. So I also just want to remind you that these behaviors are really ingrained. They're very subtle and it's going to take practice. It's not going to be really easy. So I want you to just have some grace with yourself because it's going to take some practice. Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about how these safety behaviors might be affecting your personal relationships. So, um, when you think for a moment of engaging with Life 360, and again, what we were kind of exploring, you know, when you grab it and open it up, where does your attention lie? Where do you feel your attention?
It's really like it's that elevated heart rate, it's that physical symptom, it's that, you know, that anxiety in your stomach of like, is he okay, right? And so I'm thinking about him and I'm thinking about checking on him, which means there's no attention for any other thing, or if it is, it ends up being negative attention.
So it's really with you, you know, it's you're identifying your kind of somatic experience and the thoughts that are going along with that. So, and that's what I wanted to bring your attention to, that it's a really common result of safety behaviors is that we tend to focus a lot of attention on ourselves and really on our anxiety and, you know, maintaining and reinforcing that anxiety. Um, how do you think that is affecting your relationship with Jason?
Well, when we all first agreed when he started driving and Life 360 was a thing for him, he felt like we didn't trust him. He felt like we didn't believe that he was going to do what he said or be where he said. And so I do try really hard not to mention to him, like if I think, I mean, if he was doing something like really bad, like you're supposed to be at school and you're not, like that might be a different conversation. But like, I don't necessarily say, hey, I thought you were going to be on Fifth Street at your friend's house, but you were on Eighth Street. Like, I try not to get into those little bitty pieces because I think it really would drive a wedge
Right,
between.
right.
But I've also really never had to decide if I was going to confront him about something
Mm,
I saw there because I either haven't seen it or it seemed minor enough that I didn't bring it up. And so
right,
that was sort of the agreement when because we didn't just like sneak and do Life 360. Like we didn't want to track him secretly. We wanted him to know that
right.
this is the thing we
Right.
have and
He
we're
has to have the app, so clearly
right.
he
No, we didn't
knows
want
that.
it to be like we put it on his phone while he was sleeping and he didn't, we wanted to be open about it and that it really was from a safety perspective. And I've tried really hard to keep that emphasis. Um, it is hard sometimes. And like I said, I haven't had the opportunity arise where I had to decide. Like he
Right,
was supposed to be at school, but was at the local, McDonald's. Like I
right,
haven't had
right.
something like that happen. And I think if something came up that I did have to confront him about, like I could see it like driving a wedge between us, like me, my husband, his mom, like whoever had to do it. I think it would
Right.
be a real like relationship challenge.
Yeah. And I know that's, your intention is good. You love him. Your intention is for him to be safe. And, you're checking it because you want to make sure that that's happening. So your intention is not to drive a wedge in your relationship, but that is, it sounds like a potential sequela of engaging this behavior, because if he was doing something that you needed to call him on, it would bring back those feelings of, him feeling like you guys didn't trust him. So, and again, that's one of the lessons of these safety behaviors, that is really energy that is directed on yourself, and it can interfere with really, rich and authentic relationships, the ups and downs of relationships. So you're going to be working on this week, okay?
Okay.
So our session is winding down. I want to review what we went over today. We reviewed your week and talked about your really stressful experience at the concert. And again, I just want to applaud your ability to tap into your adaptive responses of, removing yourself from the room for a little bit, getting some space and getting some air, and being able to uh, access your relaxation techniques so that you could be present for your stepson and really enjoy. So awesome job there. And we practice some worry exposure related to the birthday party that you have coming up. Um, and I want to remind you to uh, journal about that, and just be reminded of the strengths and the skills that you've already shown me that you can tap into. So that's awesome. We reviewed your worry record and thought record, and you made some good, connections between how they're related and the journaling. And we were reminded that your scores have seen improvement. We went over your homework with worry exposure. And then we learned the new behavior. We learned about safety behaviors, and we practiced that skill together. And then we talked a little bit about how the safety behaviors are maybe affecting your relationship with your stepson. So what feedback do you have for me?
You always ask that, and it's always just like our time together, I think is so valuable. Like I learn something every time and then I'm able to use it. And I not just because the record I can see it, which is helpful, but I also feel differently. And so I'm just always grateful for our time together.
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, so let's talk about your homework for this upcoming week. So in addition to the other daily tasks that you've been doing, you're now going to add the reducing safety behaviors. So once a day, you're going to try to stop yourself from engaging in a safety behavior. And as you've been doing, I want you to take good notes in your journal, really um, focusing some particular attention on how that is affecting your relationships. So the negative that you're noticing, and when you're stopping the behavior, see if you're noticing any kind of positive effects on your relationships. This is going to be week 2 of you doing the worry exposure. So now not only are you going to imagine the scenario, but you're actually going to engage in something. And you have the perfect opportunity coming up this weekend with the birthday party. So you're really going to put theory into practice. So this is kind of ideal for you to start working on this. And, again, just a reminder of the birthday party, anything else you need, if you need to step out and get some fresh air or step in and go into the bathroom, you've shown that you really know how to do that. So I'm going to remind you of your strength there. And really good journaling, when you get, and everybody's gone, all your guests are gone, just pop up into your bedroom and take good notes and write down, any observations you have from the party. Okay. And of course, you're going to complete your worry record and your thought record as you've been doing daily. So next week, we're going to be in session 8, and we're going to be talking about another skill called thought stopping. And
Is that in the manual too?
yes, so that's your preview for session 8. And as you've been doing, you're going to do this 10-question self-assessment on that. Okay, any other questions?
No, I don't have any. You said no to amoebic dysentery, so that's all I had.
All right, great. I look forward to seeing you next week, Tracy.
Okay, see you then.